Welcome back. The body of Anduin, armed with his father's sword, remade as a Mournblade, is now evil. Anduin's mind? Well, perhaps less so. We've got two young, light-wielding princes, Arthas and Anduin. And the parallels, even down to their camera angles as they approach their target, are clear. So, a lot is going on. You may be wondering, why is this happening? How has it been established? What does it mean for World of Warcraft? Believe me, it actually means quite a lot, all of this. And you're probably also wondering why you should hit up Skillshare, today's sponsor, at my link down below, which is where the first 1,000 of you to click it will get a free trial. That is double the normal length. And it's just $10 a month after that. Well, to answer your question, Skillshare is packed with thousands of incredible classes across so much design, writing, illustration, productivity, etc. But today I'm going to highlight a personal favorite. That is productivity for creatives. Build a system that brings out your best. And it is the new class from Thomas Frank. Now, you'll have seen him around YouTube, and I think you're going to see why this one is so up my alley, because I'll tell you what, after years of doing this, just relying on willpower and the creative spark is a risky proposition, and you find yourself slipping up, like I really did over the last few months, last year, honestly. And for me, this was an incredible watch. I really think you should hit it up. So, give it a shot. I think it's going to help you out a whole bunch, and you can do that completely for free. If you click my link down below, and it's just $10 a month after that for everything on Skillshare, which really is a massive amount. So big thank you to them for sponsoring the channel. And with that said, let's get into the video. Through this cinematic, we have learned a lot. First though, context, in case you're a bit confused about how we got to this point. Anduin, of course, remained captured in Torghast, and during his imprisonment, Sylvanas really did all she could to convince Anduin that she was actually fighting for the greater good, and that he should in fact join her. Anduin, of course, seeing what was really going on, rejected this. Not that his rejection mattered, because shortly after, the jailer commands Sylvanas to use Anduin's remade blade, imbued with the same dominating power that, as an example, took Arthas to, well, rather unsurprisingly, dominate his mind. And being asked to do this was a major moment for Sylvanas. So much of her motivations stem from, well, her lack of choice in her fate. From her perspective, Arthas just came up, killed her, and then forced her to serve him. That's horrible. And if she did the same thing to Anduin, then she'd be no better. Well, she was clearly torn. Anduin's words in the previous cinematic cut deep. Of course, all powered by the really quite a lot better than ever facial animations that Blizzard now have for these. And because of that, well, her discomfort at the situation was extremely clear. And that's where we left it, with her having to make her choice, and that choice being a mystery. Not anymore. We now know what happened. Like it or not, she did go through with the jailer's plan, dominating Anduin with the power now imbued into his father's sword. And at this point, Anduin essentially is just like Death Knight Arthas. Sure, there's no Helm of Domination, but with a Mournblade, Anduin makes his way to the Archon. But it's clear that Anduin is not at all in control, because right when he reaches his destination, the voice drops and the jailer speaks through him. Spooky stuff. Through that, we learn the jailer needs a key, so he blasts Maw power via the body of Anduin, and in the ensuing moments, he handily dispatches the Archon. She really did go down pretty easy, and with that done, he gets one of his keys. A complete success, you may think, and he certainly does seem to think so, as we then find out. But that's wrong, because the jailer's control breaks, albeit for a brief fleeting moment. But in that moment, you can clearly see the fear and the horror in Anduin Wryn's eyes. Of course, just like how when Arthas was freed from the sword and the helm, he looked at his father and asked basically if this whole nightmare was over. Of course, not that Anduin's fear matters, because shortly after, the jailer reins him in. Now having one of the keys, the jailer is a happy boy, saying, "The vessel performed its part flawlessly." But as he says this, hit up Sylvanas. Look at her face. Does that look like the face of someone who is thrilled at the current situation? No. She is clearly having second thoughts. And this is going to, I believe, completely overturn some lore and really change the direction of this expansion away from where we may expect. I'll go into that later. But I mean, ultimately, what was done to her has now been done to Anduin. And she played a part in that. So obviously, the doubt that her face revealed in the past cinematics will only be compounded on by this stage. And then to finish the cinematic off, the jailer says that he needs 3 keys, and apparently, once he has them, we are going to see that death was never meant to be chained. And that's what happened. So, with that covered, now for the analysis. And believe me, it is juicy. Anduin Wrynn has not been corrupted. He has been possessed. Very, very important difference. And it's a pretty key fact that he has been possessed while only wielding his Mournblade. Just like how Arthas only had Frostmourne before he went to Icecrown and donned the Helm of Domination. And yes, this does mean that Arthas likely had less control than we thought, even during the period when he was a Death Knight. Now, does that essentially trample over his character from Warcraft 3? Potentially. They may do it so that it really was Arthas, but he was heavily influenced by the jailer through the blade. I mean, after all, we always knew that the first victim of Frostmourne was Arthas Menethil himself. Now, Arthas, we must remember, as I said, he seemingly returned to himself once the helm and the blade was removed from his body. So we can expect the same from Anduin. And therefore, right, if we don't hold Anduin Wrynn, the individual, responsible for his actions while mind-controlled, so the killing of the Archon, then should we hold Arthas responsible for some of his actions? Because I don't think anyone here would blame Anduin for killing, murdering the Archon, right? And this is going to be a key thing moving forward. Really, to answer the question of why Anduin is evil now, the answer is he isn't. His body is merely possessed. He is just an instrument of the jailer. An instrument, of course, that allows the jailer to circumvent his being locked up in the maw. We've talked about Sylvanas' doubts, but here's the thing. Sylvanas is about to realize something. Now, that she has not realized this yet is honestly completely baffling to me, and I would almost class it as a pretty literal plot hole. But if Anduin Wrynn, wielding only a Mournblade, can be controlled by the jailer, then surely Arthas, wielding only a Mournblade, surely he was under the jailer's influence when it happened. Have you worked it out yet? Sylvanas is literally working for the guy that slaughtered her people, murdered her, and dominated her mind. I mean, when your ally is Kel'Thuzad, somebody who had quite a part to play in Sylvanas' life being destroyed, then maybe it's time to reconsider your allies. Why hasn't Sylvanas done that yet? I do kind of feel it's a plot hole, to be honest with you. But it is also an interesting enough narrative twist or thing that's happened. So yes, here's the thing. Sylvanas has been completely taken for a fool by the jailer. She is literally working for the guy that killed her and raised her. And as those facial animations show, all that doubt we're seeing creep into her expressions, she may very well be figuring that out right now. So yes, the jailer via Arthas made her. And then years later, the Arthas Lich King fell. We, the champions of Azeroth, defeated the jailer, because that is the new canon now. And with that, with her goal in life, the fall of the Lich King being done, Sylvanas threw herself off Icecrown to what she thought would be her doom, her death. But the thing is, after defeating the jailer's vessel and jumping off and basically dying, the jailer came in and rescued her. She clearly had no idea that she essentially was just rescued by the guy who was behind the Lich King mask. And that means that all the atrocities that she committed were based off a lie. Blizzard are clearly setting up a revenge arc. I don't expect her to be redeemed. She can't be redeemed for the awful things she's done. But she may very well choose to go out with a bang and to stick it to the man who actually ruined her life. Not Arthas Menethil, an arrogant young prince, but Zovaal, the jailer. What about Uther and Arthas then? Guess what? That's the wrong question. Uther sees Anduin, and he looks a little bit shocked. And then, very importantly, he clutches the wound left by Frostmourn's killing blow. Why? I mean, surely all he sees is Anduin Wrynn. I mean, sure, but does he clutch that wound and get very spooked every single time he sees somebody who looks like Anduin and has blonde hair? I would say no. I would say there is a humongous chance of what's happened here is that the presence of the jailer walked past him and then he maybe felt like a pain, an ache, a throb in that wound. The wound, of course, that was inflicted by Frostmourne, wielded by Arthas, but an Arthas that, of course, was not exactly himself. So yes, chances are Uther actually just felt the presence that killed him. And I'd say that once the dust settles from the attack on Elysian Hold, he's going to realize that he felt that same presence, but it was just in a different body. And if Uther realizes that, then he's going to realize that while Arthas was indeed an arrogant prick sometimes, he was not in full control whenever he turned sides. And this is something that could pave the way for genuine forgiveness from Uther, and then I would say his ascent to being a true Kyrian. Hopefully one that can unify the establishment Kyrians and the Forsworn ideologies, because I think an uncorrupted Forsworn ideology is actually better than the establishment Kyrians. And I mean, then, who knows what else? Arthas' soul is obviously in the Maw, so maybe they'll meet up and have a chat. The Jailer's plan is to collect the key of each covenant and then leave the Maw. We do not know what lock these keys open, but we do know that the power of Ardenweal's Heart of the Forest is what seals him in the Maw, right? Now, Denathrius has a key. It's a bit odd the Jailer didn't, get the key off Denathrius whenever they were allies, but there you go. The Jailer has not went to pick it up yet, and of course, Denathrius is now in Ramonia, so that might be a bit confusing. So there's that. The next key, of course, is the Primus, but we don't know. Was the key on him when he left? Is it like a part of who he is as one of the Pantheon of Death, as perhaps created by the first ones? We're not particularly sure. And then, of course, there is the Winter Queen, who will probably have her key, and I imagine he's going to be coming for her. Now, it is a bit awkward that these keys have, thus far, not at all been established as anything to do with these characters, as far as I'm aware, so it's a bit weird this has just popped up in the story. But I'd say that very likely all of this stuff, hunting down the keys of the Covenant leaders, I think that will play out during the Unified Covenant campaign of patch 9.1. So, what are they going to do? I mean, will they let Zovaal break out of the Maw? Will he end up disabling the Heart of the Forest? Will he open the Sepulchre? Perhaps the Sepulchre is what is opened by these keys. And maybe he separately needs to take down the Heart of the Forest to escape the Maw. Regardless of the details here, the outcome is basically the same. It is the Jailer's freedom. So, the Jailer clearly has a beef with the current cosmic order of things, right? Now, that order was probably established by the first ones, on top of whatever the Shadowlands naturally came to be after the creation of the universe. So, yeah, the first ones came in, they, shaped up the place in the way that they wanted, likely then also created his fellow Pantheon of Death. And it seems that at some point, back when he was called Zovel, he became disillusioned and betrayed them in some horrible way. Though, of course, Blizzard have not shown us how yet, and then obviously he was locked up after that. Now, he clearly believes that this whole system of death is just purely unjust. And I'd say that if Blizzard wants to actually have him, make a point, then they're probably going to sort of move in the direction of how, right now, life in the Warcraft universe seemingly exists to cultivate anima, only for that anima to then be used as fuel for the Shadowlands. Which, the Jailer is obviously a total dickhead, to put it lightly, but that whole state of affairs with souls and anima honestly is a bit grim to me, right? So, if all goes to plan, Zoval's going to break free, he's going to trash the place and reshape the Cosmic Order in the way that he wants. Ultimately, though, we do not know enough right now, and this essentially is a J.J. Abrams-style mystery box. Now, those are fun whenever it's the start of the mystery box. The question is, how is Blizzard actually going to turn this into a really good story over the patches? And that's where I'd say it's pretty damn hard to connect with the Jailer as a character when we've spent so little time with him. Like, our characters, there has been so much. They say that show don't tell is the good way to do a story, but there's been a hell of a lot of tell don't show by just exposition dump cinematics. So, his goals and his motivations are very ambiguous right now, and we don't really know where they're actually going to go. And that essentially is it for the immediate analysis of things. If we do extremely deep dives, I think we want to do those after the wave of BlizzCon, like Q&As and stuff like that happens. I think we're going to get quite a bit from that. And I do have later today an interview slot with Steve Denuser, so you can be pretty damn sure I've got lore questions for the guy. Okay, that is it for this video. If you were wondering what's going on with Anduin, what is actually happening here behind the scenes underneath it all, well, hopefully you now understand and will be able to follow the story a bit more clearly. And I think with patch 9.1 unifying all of the Covenant storylines into one campaign, and the story maybe just being a little bit more simple and clear and easy to follow, maybe there's just going to be an era in the next little while of the story just being a bit more readable to people, because right now it feels like Shadowlands has been, it's like it's not moved the plot forward a lot, but a lot of stuff has happened and it's all been quite spread out amongst the Covenant campaigns and stuff. And I think that has just led to some confusion. For the players who, don't log into YouTube to find their World of Warcraft lore on the Blizzard, homepage, if those people have not diligently done their Torghast stuff, they will be so confused at Lich King Anduin. So I felt it was pretty important to actually explain everything in today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support the channel and also get some really, really cool stuff with Thomas Frank and the one that I recommend today, then hit up Skillshare with that link down below. Awesome service, helps us out a bunch, pretty damn good win-win. So check him out. Thank you to them for sponsoring. Thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.